There are other methylators like TMG, trimethylglycine, that can be useful. But the point being that this is a huge issue and has a major impact on health.
I would agree, and I think that's where the problems have lied, most importantly. But my next venture on this is IV therapy to correct some of this, rather than just, well, I understand the food will strip some of the minerals. Can you place it back to IV therapy, and will that happen in a faster process?
Yes.
Real quick before I go to that, you also brought up glutathione, and we know microbiology tells us that's the biggest thing to leave the offender of a healthy cell.
Right.
So, can you talk about treatment for that as well? Please go ahead.
Sure. So, first, let's talk about what this molecule, I've mentioned it a couple of times, you just mentioned it. So glutathione is this molecule that we all produce internally. It is sometimes been described as the single most important endogenous or internally produced antioxidant. Now, why is that important? What do antioxidants do? Antioxidants quench free radicals, which are generated as a part of our normal cellular metabolism. So free radicals are a normal part of living, but if we have too many free radicals and we don't have adequate antioxidant protection, such as from glutathione, it can accelerate the aging process. It can increase inflammation. It increases oxidative stress. And there's something else important about glutathione, which is what I alluded to earlier, which is that glutathione is also a chelator. It helps to bind and remove heavy metals. Interesting thing. There was a study that was published in a very conventional journal, The Lancet. And this was published 2 decades ago. And it really didn't get a lot of traction. You don't hear much about this. And it looked at pesticide exposure and the incidence of Parkinson's disease among farmers. And what they found was, it had been known, it had been suspected, that pesticide exposure increased the risk of Parkinson's disease. But what wasn't well known, and what this study looked at, was that in individuals who genetically have a form of the gene that codes for how much glutathione they make, called glutathione transferase, for the individuals, the farmers, who were using pesticides but had the right form of the gene, they did not have an elevated risk of Parkinson's. It was only if the gene was present that did not allow them to make enough glutathione. So now back to my practice. I just want to give a little kind of primer on what glutathione is and why it's important. In my practice, we use glutathione intravenously. It's given as a slow push. And its function is to help to restore low glutathione levels, restore the tissue reserves. It's also important to note that you mentioned autoimmune. Glutathione affects something called the red ox balance in the body, which is reduction oxidation. Why is that important? Well, it's important for a number of reasons, but not the least of which is that glutathione is an important immune modulator. It's a regulator of immunity, and autoimmunity is a breakdown in the ability of the immune system to differentiate friend from foe. In other words, what should be attacked versus what shouldn't be attacked. So we'll give intravenous glutathione in my office. Works best when it's layered on top of daily like precursors like NAC, R-lipoic acid, things like that. I also use as a tool in my practice, as a tool to wellness and health, other intravenous therapies, Myers cocktails. I mean, I could get into all of those things, but that's kind of a broad-based nutritional support. The chelation infusion therapy, high-dose vitamin C for its immune-enhancing effects as well.
Before we get off the intravenous part, can I get on to NAD?
NAD. So NAD, again, we love in functional medicine, we love this alphabet soup, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. So NAD is a compound, a molecule, a substance that, as you know, is present throughout our body. It's naturally present in the cells of our body. The levels of NAD decline with age. And there are any number of things that we do in terms of lifestyle that can deplete NAD. Furthermore, repletion of NAD, kind of rebuilding or increasing NAD supplies, tends to have a rejuvenating effect. It improves the ability of cells to engage in the process of energy production, ATP production, which is, after all, the energy currency of the cell. And NAD, it can be supplemented orally, intranasally, intramuscularly, or by infusion.
Would you agree it does sometimes force the mitochondria to replicate?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So then if I make this statement, it could be part of the fountain of youth. Would you? I think that's a broad term, but I want to say it's that particular.
Yeah. So there's a researcher, I'm sure you know him, David Sinclair up at Harvard. Now, David Sinclair is a Harvard professor, so he's not, some fringe out there guy, although I do like fringe people too. But David Sinclair is a PhD professor, and he's a researcher. And he has written quite a bit on NAD, and he really does consider this, and I have a great deal of respect for him as a scientist. He does consider this, although he's hesitant to use the term fountain of youth, but it's in a sense it's a rejuvenating substance. After all, as those levels decline with age, the cellular function declines.
Yeah. Switching gears for a second, and you talked about Myers cocktail. Are you finding in practice, there's some issues in a lot of places with gut health, and we both experienced that both with client-patient, however you want to view it, and a couple of them have gone to you with great success. So can you touch a little bit on gut health? More than just microbiome, but vagus nerve and digestion,
Sure.
Processing. I'll let you go from there.
So the impact of gut health on our overall health is very real, very profound. But let's remember, like so many other things, it's bidirectional. The gut affects the body as a whole. It affects the immune system. You mentioned the microbiome. So, microbiome referring to the balance of bacteria in the gut. This meaning the balance of bacteria. It's very strain specific. Certain strains of bacteria can have an impact on the brain, on depression, anxiety, OCD. It's fascinating the extent to which the microbiome impacts the brain and other parts of the body. Now, it's also the case that that the nervous system affects the gut. I see people who have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And one of the things that I explain to those people is that irritable bowel syndrome is a condition of your gastrointestinal tract that is caused by a number of things, but a huge part of that is the balance of the sympathetic and parasympathetic system. So now we get into the vagus nerve.
Forgive me on this one. Would you consider that a lazy diagnosis by Western medicine?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
for sure.
Great.
Oh,
Okay, good. At least we're on the same wavelength.
Because, yeah.
I said it so you didn't have to.
It is, you leave me speechless with that, because it is so true, and I see it over and over again where people come from I have IBS. Well, what does that mean exactly? Okay.
It's unbelievable.
So when I use the term, and I do use that term, IBS, I'm using it, though, as a description of a malfunctioning gut. Now, what are the components of that? The tendency in conventional medicine is to say, oh yeah, it's just you're an anxious person. Yeah, you have anxiety, and therefore your gut is not working properly. But what I do and what I focus on is to say there are components to this. It's now been shown that there is an inflammatory component. It's not just functional. It is functional, but it is not just about dysmotility. It's also about inflammation. It's also about the interrelationship of the vagus nerve and catecholamines, the presence of how much dopamine relative to norepinephrine and epinephrine and serotonin.
Well, all of those would be created in the gut, so there would be
Correct.
continuous why.
That's
now,
right.
one of the questions, since we're on that topic, do you find the reverse also being true? Brain fog caused rather than just anxiety?
Could you explain a little more?
People suffering from brain fog
Yeah.
due to the same quote-unquote IBS symptoms.
Yes.
So sometimes everybody responds a little differently to those particular symptoms.
Right, absolutely. There is, and this is apropos of the very concept that I was kind of referencing a moment ago, and that is the interrelationship, the bidirectionality between the gut and the brain. And so when there is not just dysbiosis, but let's go beyond that. Let's talk about increased intestinal permeability. Some people don't like the term leaky gut, but I'll use the term increased intestinal permeability. Whatever you call it, the fact is that some individuals have a GI, gastrointestinal membrane, that is not functioning optimally. Your gut is normally supposed to allow certain things into the bloodstream and to exclude other things. And with so-called leaky gut, increased intestinal permeability, that function is compromised. Now, what does that mean? That means toxins are getting into the bloodstream. Can that lead to brain fog? Can that lead to impaired cognitive function? Absolutely. And so the ramifications, the implications on health in so many different ways. And I'll mention, I do want to bring up the vagus nerve since you brought it up also. So the vagus nerve is the nerve it's a cranial nerve that it flows out of the brain, or originates in the brain. It travels down it wraps around the throat, wraps around the esophagus, wraps around the heart, the stomach, and about 2/3 of the intestines. That is a huge nerve. It turns out that the vagus nerve, interestingly enough, which used to be thought of as just this nerve that impacted the gastrointestinal tract, and by the way, in the heart also, plays a very significant role in emotional health. I have a little device in my house called a vagal nerve stimulator. And I have used that successfully for treating migraines. It's worked wonders for me. But the vagus nerve plays a major role in health of the body, not just the gut, not just the heart, but the brain as well.
Now, that leads me to peptides, and I'm going to explain to you why. One of the things I thought that helped heal the junctions in my gut was something called BPC 157, and I know you've had quite a bit of experience with it personally. So, your thoughts on the role in peptides now in functional medicine?
Yeah.
Before we get on this, I know we're going to end up in the GL1s at some point, but I was hoping to go in another direction. But please, go ahead.
We don't have to go in that direction.
We could if we need to. Go ahead.
I like to bring up just GLP-1s just to make a point so that people understand when I'm describing peptides. Because sometimes when I first mentioned, I'm like, what's all this I'm not interested in all this chemistry. But a peptide is a molecule that is made of amino acids that are linked together, much like a protein. It's like a smaller functional unit than a protein. There are numerous peptides in the human body. And so some of these peptides that are used therapeutically are bioidentical. Some have been tweaked based on molecules that naturally exist in the body. And they each have specific physiologic functions, impacts on human physiology. Some tend to promote more anabolic processes like CJC, ipamorelin, sermorelin. Some are particularly oriented towards immune health, like some of the thymic molecules, thymic peptides, and then the one you mentioned, BPC. BPC stands for body protective compound. And this is a molecule that is naturally produced in the body that plays a role in maintaining tissue integrity, tissue health, and repair. So the role of peptides therapeutically is based on the ability of, and let's take BPC 157 as an example, to promote anabolism. And let me explain something about this. Now, I'm sure a lot of people listening are well acquainted with what anabolism means.
Right.
But I remember I was sitting in my father's chiropractor's office when I was in college. I was suffering from headaches at the time, and I went to my father's chiropractor, and I was sitting there, and he was old school. This is in Pennsylvania. I'm sitting there by myself in the waiting room, waiting for him to come out and get me. And I was sitting there, and I saw this magazine on his shelf, and it was called Anabolism. I thought, what an interesting title. I mean, I was pre-med in college. I thought, what an interesting title. Well, and this is a chiropractor's office. So, for some people, the word, in the general public, anabolic kind of has this bad association. They think of it, it's with those nasty anabolic steroids. But what they're missing is anabolism refers to a fundamentally healthy process. It means your body is in a state of net repair, net rebuilding. It's building up, it's getting stronger rather than breaking down. What happens as we age? We're breaking down. That's the tendency. It's the universe, entropy. And so we have to do things like working out to, reverse entropy, to get stronger. So a molecule that promotes anabolic processes like BPC is helping with protein synthesis. It's helping with collagen synthesis. And so in my own case, I used BPC 157 successfully to help with repair my shoulder injury. And this was something I had suffered from for well over 6 months. And within 2 weeks of using BPC 157, I was better. Now, we are in this, I have to say, in what I do in my practice, unfortunately, these peptides are this sort of gray area from the standpoint of our of the FDA and so forth. And we've had a harder time. Some of the compounders that used to prepare it no longer want to work with it, which is a shame, because these are molecules that have great therapeutic potential. I think that the time will come when this will become a more I don't want to say acceptable, but certainly a more readily accessed, important tool for healing.
I think, and I'm going to go on the political limb here, I was very happy to see the comments by the new Surgeon General, as well as the new head of human health on that. So let's see if that will change shortly, and it'll be more readily available in more compounding pharmacies. The other question I got on is blends. Blend versus taking individually. Thoughts on that in practice?
Yeah, so I'm a very evidence-based practitioner. I often say that when people come in to see me, especially when someone really isn't familiar with functional medicine,
right,
and they sit down and they've had a referral. Someone has said, "Go in and see Dr. Fenton." And one of the first things I tell them, and I can tell sometimes right off the bat, people are a little skeptical. They're sitting there, they have their head cocked, and they just have that look of skepticism. And look, healthy skepticism is good. And what I explain to them is this. I said, I would not do what I do if it wasn't evidence-based. I am a firm believer in the scientific method. I'm constantly, frequently reading studies, trying to stay up on what's going on, and again, what is evidence-based. I do not, I know plenty of people do get into the combinations. I haven't really moved much in that direction. just because my review of the literature has been more based on, the studies are more based on individuals.
Yeah.
But I know anecdotally that a lot of people are having a lot of success with it.
There's two schools of thought. One is the blends won't absorb as readily. One is the individuals will. I got to be honest, I've experimented with both. I haven't seen much of a difference one way or the other. I paired the BPC with TB500. The only thing I can tell you is gut was repaired, and I had a ankle injury in a game in college and got scoped 2 days later. And usually in South Florida, if you're familiar with the rain seasons, I can tell you when it rains rather quickly in the morning during hurricane season. One thing that I've noticed was within 5 days, I wasn't able to tell anymore. That the ankle just seemed wonderful in the morning. Didn't take as long to warm up to work out. It almost felt as good as new, and it had been like that for about a decade. So I was rather impressed. As for the gut health issues, the response from me took 3 days.
It's unfortunate also that for something that I think holds so much potential and is exciting, because of this sort of nebulous status right now of peptides, I'm at a point right now in my practice where I don't even, I'll have a discussion about peptides kind of in a broad way, but for regulatory reasons, I don't prescribe peptides. I can have a discussion about peptides,
right?
But I have to be very cautious in that regard at this point. It's unfortunate that we're in that place right now.
I would agree. Doctor, tell the audience where your practice is.
My practice is in Plantation, right there in the heart of Broward County. I have practiced in Plantation / Sunrise, Sawgrass for, as I said, 20. So I keep losing track of 26, going on 27 years now. I have always been a solo practitioner. I've shared space with a couple of people along the ways, but it's always been just my practice. And even when I shared space, at one point it was with an acupuncturist, actually a couple of different acupuncturists. And so my roots in this community go back quite a ways.
And tell everybody one other thing. You still taking patients?
I am taking new patients. We go through phases, typically once a year, usually around summer, late summer, when we don't. And the reason for that is sometimes it happens more frequently where we'll pause, we'll put it on, and I'm going to tell you why.
Don't tell me you're taking a vacation.
No. I want to tell you why. The reason is that I have built my practice one patient at a time, and I have many patients who have been coming to me for over 20 years. And patient loyalty is something that I very much appreciate. When I start hearing from my long-time established patients, Doc, I'm having trouble getting in. I called up and they said it was going to be, a week. Like, to my patients, that's a long time. I take pride in being able to accommodate and to be there for my patients. So we'll pause taking new patients when I start hearing those complaints. And then as certain people start to move away, although we're doing telemedicine. So, that's one thing that came out of the pandemic was more and more people, being comfortable with that. So I have a lot of people now who are doing telemedicine even after they move away.
Thank you, doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to be honest with you. The reason the doctor was here was I wanted you all to understand there is another way. Western medicine isn't the only way. 16 markers isn't going to take you there. We have a cause and effect system. I want to find the underlying cause, not treat the effect. So, looking forward, I want you to be able to go out and get blood work, look for other options. Get as many as 90 to 100 markers if you need to, but really look and manage your health. This show's all about one thing and one thing only. Be your own advocate. Thank you.